Hello, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on creating an activity diagram for a use case scenario using Lucidchart. Okay, and I'm creating this in the fall of 2021 for my um systems analysis course at the iSchool at Illinois. So the approach is going to be the approach that we're using in my course. If you're a YouTuber and you got here, well, you're certainly welcome to stay, but we may be doing things a little bit differently than you. So forewarned is forearmed. Okay, so um, it turns out that activity diagrams are a very powerful and expressive chart that are part of the UML standard. And they can be used for a lot of different things, even a lot of different things in the world of the systems analyst. Um, One thing that systems analysts use activity diagrams for is when they're trying to elicit requirements from the stakeholders and they're trying to sort of understand the business process, they will create an activity diagram that either uh, uh, depicts the current state business process or envisions the future state business process. And they're a really good way to kind of check whether you and the users or other stakeholders kind of understand what's going on. Okay. Now, the particular use that we're going to make here is we're learning to document requirements using use case specifications. And we're going to be using activity diagrams here in order to further explain or illustrate one of the scenarios that's part of a use case. Okay, so uh, I have here a use case specification for log attendance. This is sort of a tutorial example that I've used for a long time. It's for a student attendance system, and this is a student has arrived at class and they want to log their attendance at that class meeting. And so it's pretty simple. Um, Here's the use case specification, the brief description. The student logs her/his attendance at a particular class meeting in the attendance system. And then under flow of events, we have a basic flow. That's the happy days scenario. And we have the typical basic flow. Um, it says how the use case begins. The use case begins when student signals that he wishes to log attendance. And then it says what the system does and what the student does and what the system does. Typically, a flow in a use case narrative has a ping pong or tennis game kind of quality. The actor does, the system does, the actor does, the system does. Um, and then when we get to the end of that particular flow, we explicitly say the use case ends. Right, so this is the basic flow. This use case has several alternative flows like student councils logging, student not registered for any classes, those kinds of things. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create an activity diagram that just illustrates the basic flow. Not because in the case of the basic flow in hand that it would be particularly hard to understand, but that's kind of the simplest thing that you can do. More typically, if you were going to create an activity diagram to help the stakeholders understand the use case specification, you'd probably be doing it for a combination of the basic flow and one or more of the alternative flows. And we'll explore that at the end of the tutorial here. Okay, but for right now, we're just doing the basic flow. And let's just take a peek at that document. Okay, so we're going to talk about the document before we sort of explore how to do it with this particular diagrammer. Okay, so it has the typical swim lane apparatus pulled onto the diagram. So we have a two lane swim lane setup. Okay, so the name of the diagram is log attendix basic flow. We put that up in the top of the swim lane apparatus. And then the two lanes that we have student and system. We typically have, when we're using activity diagrams for this, we typically have a lane for each actor who participates in the use case scenario, okay? And we have a lane for system. So, in use cases that are not really complex, that typically it means that we have one actor lane like student and we have a lane for system. Okay, we have a start symbol and we have all these activity symbols. The flow from activity to activity is expressed by the arrows. Okay. And then we get down to the bottom and we have a termination or stop symbol. And not surprisingly, because the action in one of these basic flows is has this kind of ping pong or a tennis game kind of quality between the actor and the system. Well, when you look at the diagram, we have, we have one activity for the actor, one for the system, one for the actor, one for the system, and then eventually the use case ends. All right, so in particular, when we're diagramming a basic flow, we don't have any decision symbols, we don't have any merges, because a basic flow is a happy day scenario where everything goes right and as expected. The other thing that I think is important to note about the diagram that we have here is that with a little bit of license for correcting grammar and terms, it has a one-for-one correspondence to the action that happens in the basic flow, which is to say that when you're creating an activity diagram as a way of clarifying the use case specification, you uh, the text in the spec and the actions on the diagram agree precisely. Okay. Now, often when you're working with either the text or the diagram, you have some insight, right? You go, well, maybe that other thing's not completely right. Well, here's what you're expected to do. You're expected to finish, say, the diagram that we have here, and they go correct the text in the written specification. They're supposed to agree exactly. They're two expressions of the same thing. One is more graphical and the other one is more textual. Okay? Now, one of the things that some people do, I know it's not the way I typically do it, but there are some people who really like to work in a more visual way. Okay? And there's nothing to say that you as a practitioner couldn't uh, decide to do your work in activity diagrams, okay? And then when you have them right, go and create the text-based flows from the activity diagrams. In this case, we're assuming that you do the text in the written specification first, and now you're creating the activity diagram as kind of a job aid that you're going to use to explain the action to a particular stakeholder. But the chronology of that could work the other way. Okay, they're supposed to agree. Okay, but could you be a person who works with activity diagrams first and writes the spec second? Sure, you could. Nothing to keep you from doing that. Okay, so let's create this with the diagrammer. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. So we're working in Lucid chart, which is actually the Lucid app. Okay, I've opened up the app and logged in on Chrome. I think you're going to get the best experience with Chrome. Okay, and the account that I have is let's just look here. If I go up and click on my, I guess this is my avatar, this KT, and I click on account settings, we're going to see that so this is my information. Somewhere it should say that I have that I have an educational plan. So if you have an educational plan, you should be able to create all the documents you want, okay? And you ought to be able to use all the symbols that you want, okay? But if you don't have the paid educational version, which in the current semester in my course, we're not using the paid educational version, we're using the free educational version. Then there's a restriction that says you can only have 3 documents at any one time that are editable. Well, that's not a problem for us because whatever we're going to do, we're going to edit the document at hand. Okay, and when we're done with it, we're going to save it. And then when we go on to a new document, well, it's going to warn us you can only have 3 editable documents at any one time. But we're going to say that's okay, we don't care, and that's fine. So that's the kind of license that you want to have. The free educational license from Lucid Spark. Okay? So let's close that. We're back to the diagrammer. Um, if you have one of the fancier licenses, like if you have the paid educational version, you can kind of go through a dialogue. You say, what kind of document do you want to create? And you might say activity diagram, and then uh, it brings up sort of a fancy version of the page. It's pre-populated with some symbols, and there's some pretty coloring and all of that. Now, when we're using the free educational version, we don't have access to that. So the way that I'm doing this is the way that works for this free educational version. Okay, and that is we're just going to get a blank document. So let's close the document that we're on. Oh, and this is the one that I drew before. And that's going to take me back to documents. Okay, so this is your home kind of landing area. And there's a new button. So we're going to click on new to say we want a new document. We want a lucid chart blank document. Let's get that. And here's where it's going to warn us that without the premium version of this educational product, that we can only edit the three most recently created documents. And I'm going to say that's okay. Create a document anyway. And now that's going to bring up, it's going to do a little thinking, but that's going to bring up the diagrammer. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, now one problem that I have for activity diagrams is that at least on my configuration, the page comes up in the landscape orientation. Okay, and that's not what I want. So I've got to get to my page settings. And I get to that by going up to the menu for Lucid Chart, and clicking on File and then Page Settings. Okay. And so we have a page and letter size page is what I want. Landscape's not what I want. I want portrait. Okay. Auto tiling, all that kind of stuff, that all looks good. I think that's fine. Okay. So this is now in the portrait orientation. Okay, so get the page in the right orientation. Now we're going to want to get the right shapes that we can use. I typically leave the standard shapes up. Okay, so I leave them there, but I'm going to close the flowchart shapes. I'm going to close this shapes. Okay, and so now I just have the standard ones. And then I'm going to click on this gray button down at the bottom for shapes. Okay. And we get a list of all the shapes available. I'm going to scroll down through this left panel, and there's a grouping that I can open up for UML with that little triangle to the left of it. I'm going to open that up. And the one I want to check is UML state/activity. So this one set of shapes is used for activity diagrams. It's used for state machine diagrams. In this case, we're going to use this library of shapes for an activity diagram. So click the checkbox for UML state/activity, go down to the lower right and click the button Use Selected Shapes. All right, and this is what it should look like here. We've still got the standard shapes in case we want to do some text things, and then UML state activity. Okay. Now, the activity diagrams that we're going to be creating is going to, we want to bring out the shape for the two-lane swim lanes. Okay, and that's down in the bottom row. It's the second from the left. I guess the official name is multi-lane pool. So I'm going to click and just pull it out here. And it turns out that you don't want to be all the way up against the edge of the paper, because when you print this out, it actually, if you're up against the edge of the paper, then your image is up against the edge of the paper. So leave yourself a little margin. I'm going to leave a bit of a margin here. And these pool lanes, they all pull to the right. So this, so the way that I do this is I kind of hover over the middle lane, and I'm going to pull that about halfway, right? And then I'm going to hover over the right lane. I'm going to pull that maybe halfway. Okay. And again, because in this particular use case scenario, we only have one actor, in this case, student, and system. We only need two lanes, okay? If it were more complex use case narrative flow where we had more than one actor, say we had two actors in system, then we would set this up with, say, 3 lanes, and we would probably have an actor lane on the left, the system in the middle, an actor lane on the right. Okay, in this case, the lane on the left, we're going to double click on lane, and it allows us to type over it. So the actor that we have for this is student, and then we're going to double click on lane on the right, and we're going to call that system. Okay, and instead of pull up here, we're going to double click on that, and we're going to give the name of the use case, log attendance, and a hyphen and basic flow. Okay, so what would I put up here if I was trying to diagram the combination of a basic flow and one of the alternate flows? Well, I would probably say something like basic flow and whatever the name of the alternative is. Okay. All right. So that's it. We're started. So let's begin by going up here and getting a start symbol and pulling it out. Okay. And this is usually pretty good at finding the middle for you. So I'm just going to put that, I meant to get that a little higher. Okay, there we are. All right, so what do we want now? Well, if you look back at our use case specification, okay, it's the student who starts it out. Use case begins when student signals that he wishes to log attendance. Okay, so that's why we started in the swim lane for the student, and that's why the first activity is going to be the student. Okay, so now what symbol do we want to use for activity? The one that we want to use, let's hover over this one just to the right of start. It's called state. And I realize it's not a state. It would be a state symbol if this were a state machine diagram. They share symbols. But even though it says state, we want this, because the only other thing that says activity is this off-page activity a little bit to the right, and it has this kind of weird symbol on it. And that's a different symbol and not the one we want to use. So pick the state, click it, pull it out, okay? And the amount of room that you leave in between these things has really a lot to do with how cluttered the diagram is. But this is a pretty small diagram. It's probably going to fit on a single page. At least when I practiced it, I showed you the practice one. It did. So I want to be pretty tight here to make sure that I leave a little bit of room at the bottom, because once I get done, I want to show you how I might change this to have it be the combination of the basic flow and one of the alternatives. So I want to have this whole thing. I want to preserve vertical space. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So we can double click on the box, and then we're able to type. Now, does this text have to match the text in the use case specification character for character? No. Okay, because of the fact that we have a swim lane named student, we're not going to say student blah 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 blah, because we know it's a student. In the student swim lane, we see student actions. So I'm going to say signals that she, instead of she here, I'm just going to say she here, wishes to log attendance. Okay, and you know, some people might not put a period at the end of the sentence, but I do. Okay, so I've got that there. Now, it didn't quite fit. If I go down to the lower right box and hover over it, I'll get this kind of angled symbol for stretching. And I'm going to stretch that box so that the text fits pretty comfortably there. Okay, so now how do I connect this box? Oh, now when I look at this box, I can see that it's not centered. So I'm just going to hover over it. I get the dragging symbol, and I'm just going to drag to the left and the right. And you can see that I get kind of an intelligent guide here that shows me I'm centered. Okay, and now if I want to draw from one symbol to the next, I click on the one I want to draw from. So I'm going to click on the start symbol, and then I get these four red circles. Now if I hover over the circle I want to draw from, it says drag line from shape, and if I just drag down to there, I get an arrow. That looks like just what I want. Okay. Now, the next activity is going to be for the system. It says here, system displays a list of, it says classes. I think I meant courses. So I'm going to correct that here with the idea that I'll go back and I'll make them agree. Okay. Okay, so I'm not saying that these should disagree, but I'm also saying that when you find a mistake in one of the documents, take the opportunity to fix it and then go back and correct the companion document. So let's pull out another state, okay, and let's just put that about right here and double click. And I'm going to say displays list of courses for which the student is registered. Okay, and we're going to go to that lower right portion and stretch it. That fits well. Now, one way to draw the boxes, draw the lines between the boxes that I like and preserves vertical space is to draw the line from the bottom of the preceding box to the side of the new box. So I'm going to click on that first box, and then I see this little red circle there. And when the prompt comes up to drag the line, I'm going to come down a bit and then off to the right, and then it lights up the symbol I'm trying to connect to, and I draw it there and I let go. Now I think I probably got that a little bit wrong, so let me undo that. On the Mac here, that's Command Z. On Windows, it would have been Control Z. Let me try it again. I think I can draw this and get it right in the middle. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so that's how we're going to do that. Okay, so now we're going to want something that I want to do about this point is I want to save the document. It's got a temporary name now, right? So go up to the menu, File, Save. Okay, and this would be, so what do I want to call this? Well, I'll probably call this log attendance basic flow, I guess. So log attendance basic flow. All right, that's what I'm going to call it. Now, when I create the PDF in the end, I'll give it the name that we would use in our course for the document that we're going to submit for this assignment. So I'm going to rename. Okay, now it's called log attendance basic flow. I need another activity box, even though they call it a state box. Okay, I'm thinking about right here looks good. Maybe that didn't get right where I wanted it. Yeah, okay. So it says in my text version, student selects the class for which she wishes to log attendance. Again, a class, I don't think it was the right word. Okay, so, and I don't have to say student, and I was going to say selects course. Okay, that looks pretty good there. All right, and let's click on the preceding and let's draw an arrow like that. That's pretty good. Now the next thing I have in my basic flow is system requests a class meeting password. Okay, so again, I'm going to get another one of these activity boxes, and I'm going to put it down. Where can I put this? I'm going to put it right there. Okay, and I'm going to say requests class meeting password. Okay, got that. Stretch that out so it fits in there comfortably. I'm going to click on the preceding box and hover to draw the arrow. That looks good. And now one of the things that you can see is that my my swim lanes didn't go all the way to the bottom of the page, right? All right, so let's drag them down. That's about right there. Okay. All right. So request a class meeting password. The next one, the student enters the class meeting password. So let's get another box out there. Okay, that looks good. And again, we're just going to say enters class meeting password. Okay, we need just a little stretching this time. All right. And let's click on the preceding activity and draw the arrow. That looks good. Then the last activity that goes on, system confirms that student has successfully logged attendance. Okay, so let's bring on another activity box. Okay, confirms that student has successfully logged attendance. Okay. And one of the things that you can do when you're stretching these boxes is stretch them a little wider horizontally so that they're not as tall as they might be. Now, if you do that, you come off the centerings. Now you have to come back. If you click off that box and then come back over it again, you get the dragging around icon. And I've got it back, so now it's more centered. Okay, and I'm going to click the preceding activity and drag the little line to connect it. All right, and now we're done. So we have a symbol that we call end. Here in other diagrammers, it's called a terminal symbol. I think that's what it's actually called in the UML standard. So let's drag out that one. Okay. And yeah, I like that. And click on the preceding activity and drag that down. And this thing's not centered as well as I would like it to be. Well, hang on. I don't like that arrow. So I highlighted it and I hit the delete, and that fixed it. So let's try centering this again. Is that centered? Huh. What a mess. Okay. Close enough. Close enough. And now we're going to just draw this. Okay. I don't like that. I don't know why that's not really behaving the way I wanted to, but okay. There's an opportunity here to improve it. Okay, so that's the whole diagram. And again, it's pretty simple, but the basic flow is always simple. The basic flow should read like a children's book, right? And it should always say exactly how it begins. There's an activity where an actor signals the system that they want to start, and then it goes actor, system, actor, system, actor, system, and then we're done. It says that it ends. Okay, it's not too exciting because it's the basic flow. It's the nature of basic flows to be very rewarding. It's always a heartwarming story, but it's not a diagram that's exciting to read. That's for sure. Okay, so let's save this. Okay, so if we go up to the menu, we can click File, Save. Okay, and now we can go to the menu again and click on File, Print. And we should see the diagram, and the diagram should be about what we want. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to go to the upper right and click the print button. Okay. And it says processing complete down here in the lower left. And now it gives me a dialog, and maybe because I previously selected this, it says save as PDF. up here in the destination. I've got one printer that I use with my laptop, so you can see that there. But we definitely want to save to PDF in our class, and then we click on Save, and it's going to give us the dialog. And I'm just going to put this in my downloads for now. Oh, I'm already in the downloads. And I'm going to call this one trainer underscore Kevin skills practice activity diagram. And I'm going to click save. Now, since I already have one out there with that name, because that was the one I showed you at the beginning of the video, well, it's going to ask me to replace it, which I did. And let's just go make sure it's there. So I'm going out in my Mac Finder into downloads, and I'm finding that file, and I'm double clicking. And did it open up? Oh, yeah, it did open up. It's right here. Okay. And so what we've done is we've replaced the diagram that I had practiced and I showed you before. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go a little bit farther, and I'm going to say, well, then how would we illustrate the combination of a basic flow and some of the alternative flows, right? Because when you really think of it, when you look at this kind of diagram, okay, and again, let me shrink it a bit here so that we can see the whole thing. It's pretty basic, right? So is this a scenario that we need to draw an activity diagram for in order to illustrate it? Maybe not. Okay. The reason that we do these basic flows when we practice is it's a good place to start. But what scenario might you need to diagram for a stakeholder that you're trying to explain a scenario to? Well, maybe it's the combination of a basic flow and an alternative flow. Okay, so now we're going to look at the spec again. Okay, so we have student councils logging, student not registered for any classes, student cannot find desired class, student enters incorrect class meeting password, student attempts to log attendance outside of permitted hours. I have all of those, okay? Well, let's do a combination of student enters incorrect class meeting password, okay? So how would I do this? Well, I'm just going to change the diagram that I have here, okay? So I'm going to close this and come here. And I don't even know, I haven't even used this enough to know that I can, oh, I can duplicate it here. So I'm going to duplicate the one that I have. Okay. And it says create a document anyway. Okay, so now it says copy of log attendance basic flow. And let's just call this new one log attendance basic flow. And student enters incorrect class meeting password. Okay. All right. All right. So again, it was pretty easy to duplicate that and give it a new name. So I just want to come up here to this place where I have the name. So we're going to say log attendance basic flow. And I think we've got to increase the magnification down here. In the lower right, we've got the opportunity to do that. Okay. And scroll up. And we're going to say basic flow. And student enters incorrect class meeting password. Okay, so we've got that. So we want a diagram that's going to show that happening. Okay, so what does the spec say? Well, it says flow begins when the student has entered an incorrect class meeting password. System displays an error message. Flow continues in the basic flow at system requests the class meeting password. Okay, which means that we're going to go back to the basic flow. Okay. So we're going to show how that could happen. Okay. Okay, so it's going to display an error message. So displays error message. Okay, so we've got that. Okay, we're not going to stop there. Let's get rid of that stop for now. And we'll get rid of that arrow because it's not going to the right place. Okay, so what it displays the error message, and then it's going to request the class meeting password again. Okay, so maybe we can copy this. Let's see. We're going to highlight it, right click, copy, and then we're going to come down here, right click, paste. Some of these actions are unavailable via the menu. Well, I don't like that. So we'll dismiss this. Well, we couldn't do that. So this is where I have to confess I'm pretty new to Lucid Charts. You may already be better than me. Okay, in which case, the next time you see me, tell me how I could have made that cut and paste work. Okay, so let's go back. Oh, we lost our shapes. But we're okay because, see the shapes in use? Those are all the shapes we're going to need, I think. Oh, no. Oh, we're okay. We still have all of our shapes down here. So let's drag out, click and drag out one of these guys here. And we're going to say, what did we say? Request class meeting password. Okay, and again, we're going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay. All right, that looks good. And so let's draw the line on this one. Okay, and maybe this needs to come over just a little bit. Okay. All right. So then we're going to go here. I'm still trying to find out what we're going to do. So we're going to enter the class meeting password. And let's just put this here. Enters correct class meeting password. Okay, and then we can maybe clarify up a little bit early. Let's stretch that one a bit. Okay, let's say enters incorrect class meeting password. Okay, that's good. And let's stretch it, baby, just a little bit. Okay, so now we can tell the difference between these two actions. Okay, and then for some reason these guys are not cooperating, so I'm going to redraw the line over here. I think I stretched that box. I think that's what wrong there. Okay, and then we're going to highlight that one and draw over here. Okay, that looks good. And let's see, do we have enough room to get this done? I think just. Okay, so let's bring a state, let's bring an activity here. Okay, and we could say confirms that student has successfully logged attendance. Okay, and let's do a little stretching on that. Okay, and again, yeah, we're going to put that right there. Good. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have the end. So let's drag out the end. I'm just going to put that out to the right. To the right or down are good ways for things to flow. Okay, now let's draw these. Okay, I'm going to draw this. And then let's draw the next line. And we're done. Okay, so this would probably, even though in the assignments I typically give for my class, I typically have you draw just a basic flow, just to get the idea about it should correspond one-to-one with the text that's in the written use case spec. Okay. Maybe a more realistic scenario in the field would be you would be drawing one of these to illustrate the combination of the basic flow and one or more of the alternative flows. And the reason why you're drawing the activity diagram is maybe it's hard for the stakeholder that you're talking to visualize how this basic flow is going to interact with these alternative flows. And so what are you going to do? You're going to draw pictures, okay? And this is the picture, right? And again, it's the same symbols and the same approach that you would take with the basic flow, but you're telling a slightly more complex story. So now we've got this diagram done. Let's save it. I went up to the wrong menu. Let's go to the menu for Lucidchart. File, save. Okay, and then on Lucidchart again, file, print. And how does that look? Not too bad. You can kind of see I'm a little jammed up at the bottom. So if I had a little bit more time, I'd probably rework this so that it looked a little better. I'm not too jammed up at the bottom though. So I've got this and I'm going to click up on the right and the print button. And we just wait a minute for the processing to go on. And now it brings up the dialog box. As you can see, this choice for the destination is sticky. So now it says saved as PDF. And I'm going to click on save. And I'm just going to call this I'm just going to call this combination of basic flow and an alternate flow. Okay, it's maybe not the file name that I would use when I wanted to hand it in, but that's it. And now let's go back and just take a look at what that looks like. There it is, combination of basic flow and alternative flow. And I open that up, and let's kind of shrink it down, and we'll see it. Okay. And again, even though this combination of the basic flow and the alternative flow is not the typical assignment for my course, it's probably going to be a more typical use in the field, where you would go to the trouble of illustrating a use case scenario with an activity diagram. Given the fact that basic flows are really basic and easily understood when they're done by themselves. Okay? All right, so this is it. Good luck on your diagramming assignment, and I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.